The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com.
Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Why We Pod. My name is Rich Meranto. I'm the owner-operator of Meranto Media, as well as the Emerge Studios, where we're actually recording this episode. So, Emerge Media Creators Co-op is a place for creators. So we have a whole collection of content creators, podcasters, you name it, that come in and do photography, video production, and we really kind of want to be a hub. If you're in the Buffalo, Niagara area, we're located up in Niagara Falls, about a mile, not even, from Niagara University, and we provide production services. So if you're interested in content creation and a location to do it, we'd love to check out the socials at the bottom of the screen and come check us out. So I was a teacher for 31 years, and for about 20 of those years, I taught media production, but I've been using video cameras since they came out when I was a kid with my friends. And I've always been around media and video, and I got to teach it for a long time. So when I retired, I decided to open up my own place, and I'm very fortunate to have a pretty good collection of folks that have decided to be part of the Emerge family. And one of the things as we all talk about podcasting is we all start to realize that there's some commonalities on why we do it. And I decided I wanted to have my own podcast because I produced 13 for a bunch of other people, but I didn't have my own content. So this podcast is really going to be talking to other content creators, probably mostly podcasters, and kind of try to understand like what works for them. And that's kind of where we're headed. So if you have a podcast, you don't have to be part of Emerge. But send me an email, reach out, and I'd love to be on, and I definitely want to get some podcasters from places that don't produce with me. I really want to get a sense of like the commonality of all of us. So when I was thinking about who my first guest should be, I immediately thought of the guy that was the first guy that really trusted me and Emerge to be the site to grow his own podcast. So, and he's a former student. So I'd like to welcome to the first interview that I've done, Jacob Littere.
No, who's that?
So we're never going to call him Jacob. We will not be calling him Jacob again, but that's his real name.
Yeah,
but
the full government.
That's his Christian given name, as it were. The government knows him as Jacob Littere, but everybody else calls you Tank.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, you were my student. I don't think I ever called you. Probably after the first week, I realized everybody called you Tank, so you just became Tank at that point.
I always joke, like, no one knows my real name. There's a lot of people that don't know my real name, and it goes all the way back to, like, teachers.
That's hilarious.
Just other, like, friends, their parents and everything. Like, when my name comes up, it's like, who the hell is Jacob? Even at work, David.
Here's the real question: you're getting married this year.
Yeah.
What does Nadia call you?
She just calls me Jake.
Okay,
she's literally
she's the only one.
She's literally the only one.
Mom?
Yeah.
Mom, Dad?
My dad goes. He calls me Tank jokingly, but when it's serious, it's Jake or
well,
Jacob.
yeah, right.
When you hear
different.
Jacob Lewis, that's when you know I'm in trouble.
Well, yeah, definitely. But thanks for coming in. I appreciate. And actually, I will say that even when I was trying to design this podcast, you've been very helpful. Just kind of because I'm really impressed with what you've accomplished with the production quality and the brand you're building with the Tank. It was funny. I remember we had our first conversation and what we were going to call the thing, and I'm like, you already have your Tank brand going, so you might as well just stick with it and go with it.
And that was at the original Emerge building. I'll never forget that meeting because we had Matt Johnson. Shout out Matt Johnson. He's a big part of this as well.
Who will be a guest very soon.
100%. And I did want to kind of steer away from it because I'm sure we'll get into like why iPod,
right?
Which is the whole gist of this whole podcast. But it's just like I kind of wanted to steer away from what I had already started, and it didn't occur to me like, dude, you already had this thing going. It's who you are. Just stick with it and continue to build off.
Tank, just tell us a little about yourself.
So about me, like the thing about me is like I am not one of those guys where like I really like talk about myself. Not a big fan of that. I don't want to be like, oh, look at the spotlights on me type of deal. But it's weird being on the opposite end because normally I'm hosting.
Right.
So as a guest, we're going to give it a shot. We'll see. So,
sure.
But just talk about myself and sort of like my journey of how I got here at Emerge and got the Tank Talk podcast rolling. So, obviously, you mentioned in the intro that I was a former student of yours. Took your media production class, absolutely loved everything, and like Emerge is essentially your media production class, but on steroids, as we like to say.
Sure.
You were way ahead of the game when it came to like the short content pieces, like the Vine when that was back then. So, took your media production class, had the idea in the back of my head that I kind of wanted to do something for a living, go to school for something like that. But my heart was telling me I had to do something in coaching. Obviously, lifelong sports fan. I wanted to be able to coach baseball and teach the youth on sports and everything or whatever. So, I ended up going to NCCC for sports management. Ended up being one of the worst decisions of my life because if I can recall one of the conversations I had with you about what I wanted to take in college, you always told me digital media, you're doing so well in my class. This is right up your realm. This is what you need to do. I was stubborn enough where I'm like, yeah, I hear you, but not going to happen. I want to stick to coaching. So sports management, absolutely plunked it. So I was at this weird phase of like, okay, do I want to like go work? Do I want to continue school? So recalled our conversation that we had when I was in high school. Went up to digital media. Shout out Robert Bergotti. He was a big part of he ran the
Yeah.
department
He
there.
did a great job over there.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned before he recently retired.
He just
or
retired.
something.
He retired this like last summer.
Yeah, so he was a big part of that and absolutely nailed it. Digital media. I should have done it from the get go, but that ended up working out. So during that time, again, I always try to think like 3 steps ahead. Nadia always gets on to me about this. My fiance Nadia, she's always telling me I gotta be in the moment more. You gotta be where your feet are. So at that point, I started Tank Productions, my independent media production company, focused on photography, video production in terms of just like wedding videos.
Right.
Again, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I was doing like multiple things at once, just testing things out. And then graduated from NCCC, gave myself a year to see what I could do with Tank Productions. Didn't exactly work out the way I planned it. Thought I was gonna get rich quick with all the
Right.
video production stuff. Didn't work out necessarily. So I started getting into podcasting. Started listening to different podcasts like the Joe Rogan podcast and the Pat McAfee show. So figured get into some podcasts. And I started Tank Talk literally in my mom's dining room. Just put up the backdrop, had the USB microphones plugged
Right.
in, set the Canon camera up on a tripod. Just had a couple of my buddies come through. Fast forward, eventually had to move out.
Right.
And during this time period, I'm working at different part-time jobs like Crunch Fitness, Puma at the
Yep.
fashion outlets, this and that, just to make money through the whole thing. And then move out to Cheektowaga with my girlfriend at the time, Nadia. Started to pick up Tank Talk again, but literally it was just me talking to a wall, talking
Right.
to a camera. Didn't really get no feedback. Again, just didn't work out the way I thought. And then months later, get a phone call from yourself
Yep.
saying that you're going to open a Merge Media Creators Co-op up, and you knew I did.
I knew you were trying to do some stuff, and you
Yeah.
were one of those people that I knew that was a former student that I thought had a cool vibe, and I thought you would be the right person to look at kind of joining the Emerge family early on. And then, as I've said, like I've been super appreciative that you gave us a shot in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I remember you guys all came, and I think we had moved. I think I had signed the lease,
Mhm.
but at that point hadn't done anything. I mean,
Yeah,
we were just,
I don't
we were
think-
literally like,
I don't know if you and Christian might have had the next of kin going a little bit. Just
I don't think we even
not
had,
at
I
that
don't think
point.
we did anything yet. I think we
Okay.
were still renovating the building when you came the
Okay,
first
then.
time.
So yeah, we had that conversation. You called me in. We had that meeting. Me, you, and Matt Johnson.
Yep.
Shout out Matt Johnson. He's a big part of this journey as well. And I was trying to pivot because I seen what Pat McAfee was doing with his show, and like I seen that he obviously had a bigger head start than I did with this. He was an NFL punter, so he already
Right.
had a couple million in his back pocket to get things rolling. But I seen what he was doing with the show, like his co-hosts, all of his friends, and like some of his family. He's talking about something he's passionate about that he loves, and he's doing it with the people he loves too.
Right.
And that's when it hit me. I'm like, I got to find a way to get to what he's doing with this, because he's essentially like a modern digital media mogul, setting the tone for everything going
Sure.
on that's going on now. So essentially, the Tank Talk podcast again was inspired by the Pat McAfee show. It sort of has that style, and to kind of circle back to when I was talking about when we started in my mom's dining room, it kind of had that Joe Rogan feel to it. I didn't know what I wanted to do with the podcast, because originally it was not a sports podcast. It was mainly just open book podcast.
Yeah,
you
whatever
know,
was going on.
whatever was going on. So then that ended, because obviously couldn't do the podcast in my mom's dining room for too long, because when
Right.
you move out,
Right.
you know what I mean? So I ended up moving out. We had that meeting. You called me in. And then again, we're talking about the branding and everything, and how I wanted to look. And I didn't know if I wanted to stick with the Tank Talk
Right.
podcast at that point. I kind of wanted to take a different direction, because, again, like I've been watching Pat McAfee for years, since he's retired and
Right.
got into the media business. And so I'm like, seeing him, it's just like, and again, at that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do with
Right.
the experience and the knowledge I had in media production. Like I was doing like photo shoots and wedding
Right.
videos and everything, but I knew I didn't want to do that. I want to incorporate sports, because
Right.
that's all I know. That's my bread and butter. So essentially, like I see him every day, and I'm just like, I got to be doing something like this.
Yeah.
It's just the way he's doing something that he loves, talks about everything he loves with the people that he loves.
But I get, like, I understand, and I call your set that's on the other side of this room, I call it the Pat McAfee style
Yeah.
set, because it's really kind of designed off that concept. And there's a bunch of props and stuff, and it's more the cast of characters, and that's what I love most about your pod, is it's not just you talking. It is a cast of characters, and it has evolved. It's changed.
100%.
But I mean, like, it's definitely, that's why I think it really, for me, why I think it's worked so well, because like it's. I like the way you do the pod. I think it's really cool the way you do it, because you try to make it professional, but then even when it's professional, you make fun of the fact that you're making it professional.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of tongue in cheek, with like, look at the transition we just had there, like how we transitioned to that topic.
Yeah, it's all about the transparency.
Yeah, like-
you gotta have fun with it.
Yeah, like you're not trying to take yourselves too seriously, and you can't with Donnie anyway. So I mean, like, how much time goes into before pre-production and post-production for you with that pod to do what you do?
I can't tell you the amount of hours off the top of my head, because the way I work is just I go do it and don't even
Right.
keep track of time. I'm just in this steady, like what's it called?
Yeah, just
I'm brain.
Yeah, I know what
farting.
you mean.
You know
Like,
what I mean? Just
yeah.
sort of routine,
Right,
You could say.
yeah.
But it's almost like another full-time job. It really is, because it's a lot of people don't realize, like, when it comes to podcasting, it's more than just setting the camera up,
Right.
clicking record, and talking. You got to have what you're talking about, which for us, I literally just see what's going on. And since it's about football, mainly focused around NFL football, I'll watch the games on Sundays. Once everything's over with, we have a shared notes section. We just jot down, not in full detail, just a
Right.
little short description of like bullet points of what we want to talk about and what everyone else is talking about. You go on Google Trends, see what everyone else is talking about online.
Right.
You go through Twitter,
Right.
Instagram, see what's trending. So you kind of
And sometimes you pull content from that. You'll
Exactly.
drop something that you saw on Twitter or whatever.
And then we're not even talking about creating the graphics yet.
Right.
Clips, if we want to talk about something and show a little piece of
Right.
what we're talking about, creating the clip. We're talking. It's another full-time job.
And it's funny, yeah, because there's definitely like that. And then when you're done, then you got all the post-production work,
Yeah.
because now you need to make shorts and reels and TikToks and drop all those. And you and I are constantly finding better ways of doing that to save us time, like
Yeah.
using apps like, maybe it's $15 a month to buy that app or whatever, but like, okay, it's just like, but it's an hour or less of my time to have to put in all the text. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, there's times that we have to, like, you have to find that balance of, like,
You're human, man.
Right.
You're human.
and more importantly, you're engaged, like you're getting married, like, and from everything I've only met Nadia a handful of times, and I think she's amazing for you. She's just super, super nice, and I can't wait for you guys to be at your wedding and stuff.
She's gonna
But
love
like,
that.
but
She's
you
gonna
also,
love
I think you are very fortunate, and we've talked about this off camera. Like, seems like you're very fortunate to have someone that kind of knows who you are,
Mhm.
and that you can't. you can't put a price tag on that.
Right.
Like on having a partner in life that really gets what's important to you and is supportive of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because if she didn't get any of that and sees like what my end goal is with everything that I'm doing,
Yeah.
there's no chance to be able to make it work because,
Right.
like I was saying, I'm treating the podcast and the business like a full-time job as it is.
Right.
I'm working another full-time job, and you have to live a life outside of that realm. So,
Yeah, like this morning, I'm very fortunate. I have, I've been married. I'll be married 30 years this summer, and I have, even before I was married, she knew the kind of teacher that I wanted to be from the very beginning. Like even when we had our kids, like we had to adjust. Because I felt being a parent was, my relationship with my children is more important than, my wife is more important than anything. But making sure that I had balance of being a dad, but also still being the Meranto.
right.
I couldn't say, well, I don't have time to be like a caring adult anymore because I got my own kids. Like that was never a thing for my wife. She's like, no, you have to go do that, but you can't do it like you used to. You can't do it 6 hours after school.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to do it efficiently. And then when you are home, you got to be home. But even this morning, she's like, when's your last day off? When's the last time you didn't go to Emerge? And I was like,
I always joke, I'm like, you're working more here than you were at your teaching job, man.
This is like I'm like I could not do some of the projects that I'm doing. I'm choosing to do them.
Yeah.
It's still my choice. But I did say, oh geez, like but then when I'm not here, then I'm worried that I'm not making any money. So like I get worried about it. Like
100%.
Let's talk about where the pod lives and how you made those. Like where is the pod? Like talk about how you get it out there. Where is it?
So
where does it live?
It lives on YouTube, which I think it's if you're looking to do visual podcasts, I know there's Twitch platforms, everything.
Right.
The main one's got to be on YouTube, and that's where we live right now. It's essentially we started off with Twitch, didn't really fit our brand and our show, so we kind of pivoted early on to go to YouTube, and we've been skyrocketing since then. But we're live on YouTube every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then it lives on YouTube. There's other daily content that we post on there. You can find our other content on Instagram, Twitter, pretty much all social platforms at @TankTalk_pod. And you're gonna get everything. Like I said, we talk about everything that's trending in the NFL, but not just the NFL. Whatever else is happening.
How do you feel about your short content? Like, do you feel like you get a lot of? I feel like short content is the future. Like, not saying that you only create short content. I think in many ways my business model is also to create the longer content so I can make short content to get attention, to get people to go watch the full content. I feel like it goes hand in hand. Where are you on that?
100%. No, I'm right on the same boat as you because you got to think about it too. And just outside of like podcasting and everything, just life in general, like everyone's attention spans are shortening.
Right.
It's just how it is right now. So you gotta, when you make your content, you gotta make an emphasis on the shorts, and I think that's where I don't regret much, but that's the one thing I do regret is not noticing that right away when we first started making the content, because once I did take the pivot and notice like, okay, this is where the trend is at.
Right.
Our numbers just went up from there, and even you could attest to other shows that you have here at Emerge. It's the same thing with them, and we can't stress it enough. Like you got to get people's attentions right away. They always say the rule of thumb is the first 2 seconds has to be attention grabbing right away.
Right.
So it could either be something you're talking about, something zoomed in on the frame, just something that pops right away, like an image or some type of video to get everyone's attention right away and make them stick around. But the short form content is where it's at right now.
Well, it's funny because a lot of what I do on TikTok is almost like experimental. Like it's almost like beta testing so I can be better at it, so I can help my clients. So I don't care if any of my TikToks or my pods, this one I really want to do something with. But some of the other stuff I do, it's not that important to me. It's more like how do I learn to do the process so I can be a better producer and or, whatever consultant for people. But it's funny when you watch and you're like, geez, I did a 90-second TikTok and then the person watched for like 30 seconds and it's, or whatever, a third of it or whatever, 30% or something. And I kind of realized that that's kind of good. Like you would think that like 30% isn't good, but a lot of people don't even finish watching a TikTok.
Right.
Like it not because it wasn't good necessarily, but maybe they don't care enough about that content.
Yeah, either that, and it's also you got to take into consideration like the algorithm now too, because everything is algorithm based. So like it'll pick up on what's trending, like we were talking about earlier.
Right.
That's the big thing. How you word everything, because if you start off blabbing off right away, then you get to the meat of the bones right in the middle.
Right.
It's not gonna pick up the algorithm because, like for example, on TikTok, I've learned that as soon as you post, it spits it out to 200 people, and
Right.
depending on how those 200 people react to your video and how long they watch it for, okay, if we're not really getting too many likes or engagement on it, and people aren't watching that long,
TikTok just kills
we're
it.
just gonna throw it. We're gonna throw it out the algorithm. So that's why it's
Interesting.
important to get it going right off the bat.
It's and that's a good point. I mean, that's kind of like what I want this podcast to be, is the kind of like simple little things that by us putting in the work,
Yeah.
like, like the old expression, we're working in the lab, like crunching the
That's
numbers,
good shit.
like that. It is like it is. There's a lot of this. Like, this is really, people don't get any of this. Like, the number of people that I talk to that think that they can do this full time, like they're going to give up their job because they watched Hawk 2 Girl walk down the street or something and get an interview. And like, and where is she now? Like, I mean,
she's crying about
like,
everybody on crypto. That's what she's
yeah, I mean, like, and how to ruin 15 minutes of fame, like, and shorten it. Like, but I mean, there's people out there that I talk to, like, and I'm like, you got to understand, like, no one's quitting their job. I mean, I own a building, but I mean, if I had to pay my rent with this, we'd be closed already.
Yeah.
I would have another job. I'm lucky enough that this is a second act experience for me. So for me, I have to find a way to make this work for people that, like, you don't have a source of income for this. Yes, you can get some sponsors, and you've had some sponsors, and then you hopefully everybody gets to the point where you can monetize and you make a little bit of money off of that. But ultimately, most of us are just taking it out of, it's not like we're a company and we have like an advertising budget.
right.
Most of us have to decide like how we're going to spend that money.
Yeah,
So
it's all coming out of our own pockets,
Right. Are there suggestions you have when you're doing it? Like, how do you know when you're sitting there in the chair over there on the left, like, I got to move on? Like, how do you know when it's time to move to the next topic? Or is it been a journey for that? Do you have it laid out ahead of time, or do you like let things go kind of organically?
Like my whole thing about our show is almost everything is organic, other than the bullet point topic list and maybe some of the clips and graphics we play. So it's just a matter of like, in the conversation, it's just a natural feel.
Right.
It really is, and it's just like, even just think about a regular conversation, right? It's just me
Right.
and you, whatever. You're blabbing on about something, whatever, and then it's like, okay, I think I got enough out of this. Let's
Right.
just move on to the next thing. And then you kind of find like the transition point. Like, okay, with that said, we're going to go on to this.
Right.
That said, we're going to go on to this, whatever it is. So
Is that
it's more of a
difficult
natural
sometimes
feel.
with some of your guests, like, and your co-host, to kind of rail them in at all? Most people easy to do.
Like,
or...
trust me, we've had a couple guests, and you used to produce our
Yeah.
podcast when we first started, and you even mentioned yourself, like, okay, this guy is. You can tell he hasn't been on the microphone or whatever. He hasn't really
Right.
had a podcast type of feel, so he's not a great guest. And it's not not a knock on him. It's just some of those people that don't really have experience in doing this.
Right.
You can't really knock them for it, but that's why when we try to get guests, I try to have people that already make content or have
Right.
appeared on other content pieces, so they already understand like how to be on the other end of an interview and hosting and whatnot.
Well, even
so,
some of the times when you've had guests, they aren't necessarily on the whole show.
right.
Like, even if I pop in, I don't stay for the whole show. I usually not going to hang around the whole thing because I
Right.
don't necessarily feel I add enough to be there the entire time, honestly, to be honest. But I mean, like, if I come in for 15 minutes, or if you got to come and sit, we have the blue chair over there, like similar to this chair, and quite often maybe they only come in for 20 minutes. Or like if you do a remote guest, someone on the StreamYard, like a lot of times they're only on for 20 minutes, especially if it's someone that's like, they got their own content, or maybe
Sure.
they're a professional. You respect, I think you've done a nice job respecting their time. You appreciate, obviously, in my mind, that they could have just said no. So the
Easily.
fact that they're giving you 20 minutes is like, I'm going to be fortunate and appreciative to the 20 minutes.
100%, and you got to let them know that too
Yeah.
when they're on, because it really is big. Just taking time out of your own schedule, because you got to think of it on the other side of the spectrum too. It's like, okay, I don't even know these guys, and I'm
Right.
giving them 20 to 30 minutes of my time, so it's
Right.
it's huge to be appreciated.
And for
that.
most of those guys, like when you've had folks on, and you can name a couple people if you want, but like that's their job. Like they get paid to be guests on things. So for them to give away the store for free, so to speak, they don't have to do that. They're doing it really out of like respect for the fact that they're lucky enough. I'm assuming some of them do it out of respect for they know they're lucky enough to be doing it and get paid. So they're trying to be supportive to somebody else, but they're also not going to give away 3 hours of their time.
Right.
Like, and they don't want it to be a clown show either,
Yeah, because I mean, we've talked to our variety of guests is actually hilarious if you sit back and look
For
at
sure.
it. As you know, we've had guys from Cody Stutes. He's a reporter down in Houston. He's worked with Sports Illustrated, ESPN, some of the bigger sports networks regionally too down there in Houston. So obviously that's more of like a serious guest, but he has some personality, which I know because I discovered him on YouTube.
Right.
We've had Sal Capaccio, obviously.
How did you get some of the guests that you've gotten?
So we've had a couple of like cast of characters of like almost Andy Reid who made his second appearance,
Right.
and he's just an Andy Reid impersonator.
Right.
So it's always a fun one. You just reach out, man. You really do. And if the way I see it is if you're a podcaster creator that's from Emerge or not from Emerge, I always say just shoot your shot, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst they can say is no or just ignore you.
I tried to teach you guys that when you were in school. Like, the worst they can do is say no.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get written up or suspended for it, like, or fired. Like, they might even not even answer the email.
Yeah.
But it's like a sales call. Like, I'm not a sales guy, but I bet you like you'd make 10 calls, maybe 100. And you're hoping to get 4 to respond. I don't know what the number is in sales, but I'm sure it's like not high. Like, you're going to knock on a lot of doors and get what you can.
100%. And even like just talking about the salesman pitch too, because that's another hat you got to wear that you don't really think of in terms of branding and working with your podcast. If you want to get sponsorship and try to get money out of it, you got to put on the salesman hat, and it ties to like getting guests on too, right? Because it's almost all in one the same. You keep shooting your shot. There's more people that say no or ignore you than the ones that say yes. And
so one time you invested in a guest, and I thought it was great because you were so happy to have him, was this past Monday. You had the Super Show.
Yes.
And you were really happy about this moment. And I know this cost you a few bucks, but who cares? Because there's once in a while, like, it was just fun to have him on.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. The best $30 I've ever spent in my life. I'll go to my grave saying that, so obviously growing up, I was a big WWE fan.
Right.
And one of the inspirations from the Super Show, as we like to say, it's our biggest show of the year. It's one we do the week of the Super Bowl, just talking about the Super Bowl, and even just having like we do our Emerge ceremony.
Yeah, it's like it's a celebration.
It's a celebration of the year that was with football and everything going on that we got on the pod. So, anyways, the inspiration from the title was Tony Chimmel. He was the ring announcer for Friday Night SmackDown years ago, growing up.
Right.
When I was growing up, and what he was known for was when he announced Edge out, because Edge was known, for those of you who don't know, he was known as the Rated R Superstar. So he would go, the Rated R Superstar. I'm like, okay, we got to incorporate that somehow and get that. So I seen he's on Cameo now because he's not working in any wrestling or whatever. That's how he's making his extra money. So I'm like, you know what? I said, I just got to do it. I got to do it. It's the greatest intro to all of our episodes.
And that's a fun moment. I mean, those are those things. And again, you invested in that, but whatever. Like,
worth every penny.
I mean, there definitely has to be that part of it. Is there things about this? Is there things that frustrate you in terms of, like, how do you handle, like, geez, I'm not getting this didn't get as many views as I thought it was going to. How do you deal with like that level of frustration? Do you question things? What do you do when, like, because there's times it's like, man, that just didn't go well. Like, I'm not getting the growth that I kind of like. How do you temper that? Like, how do you deal with some of that?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. So with everything, I'm more of like a cool, calm, and collective type of guy, and try not to let things get to me. But it does kind of upset you. Just full transparency, we're all human here, so it's like you see something you put hours and a lot of time into, and it doesn't pan out the way you think it's gonna go. It does upset me a little bit, but I mean, everything's a learning experience, right?
Right.
So it's like, okay, I'm not getting the numbers that I wanted to out of this one because, I mean, obviously everything's analytical with podcasting and socials and all that. But
Right.
if it doesn't work out the way I thought, I'm like, okay, let me just sit back.
Well, some of it's also beyond your control.
Exactly.
Like
That's one thing you got to think too.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, what could I learn from this going into the next post or
Right.
video I want to do? Maybe I got to say something different in the beginning. Maybe it's something I got to, like, in post production, I got to re-edit going into the next one. Because if you look back on a lot of our content, like, that's the one thing with us. Like, I don't delete a lot of our stuff, even if it doesn't do well, because my perspective is like, okay, you see where we come from and where we're at now. So
Right.
it's like over time you see the growth within our content.
I'm not gonna say I had like conceit or anything like that, but I definitely thought what I knew coming from my experiences at the school running a cable access channel and that type of content, bringing it into this content creation, I think I had a better sense of it than I did. And I realize now I made a lot of mistakes. And, and I appreciated that all you guys in the beginning, you, Duke, Nico with the big yak, some of the other things early on were like, man, why did we do it that way? And I think the smartest thing that I did was not get upset when anybody was critical.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could have been like, I ran the TV studio, and I could have been that guy and I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I think whether it was you saying things to me like about, being focused when I was producing and or just like we need to get better lighting or better microphones or whatever it was, and even like a few of the pods that haven't lasted, even the learning experience from those helped us get better. Like even like something as stupid is like, yeah, this wall being painted black will look great. And then you realize, man, that's terrible for lighting. Like that's just
terrible,
awful. That was why did we paint this wall black? Like, or we needed to light it. Like we've gotten better at those things. Like we've had to spend some money in order to improve the quality. And then even like one of the things that was this is probably, you deserve a lot of credit for this because we were producing in the old brick room at the other building and you felt like we needed a different setup. And we talked about it and we were landlocked in that building. So we decided to turn the basement into a podcast studio. The bunker. And we weren't really using it for anything. And we obviously invested some time and some money to build a set down there. And we ended up building a set so it spun around so we could use it for the Star Wars guys on the back side of it. Then other people could use it and other people started using it. And everybody wanted to move to the basement. And then I remember Christian was saying, like, we got to get out of this building because, like, we're in a basement. Like, we got to get out of the basement.
Really,
you got to find something different. But I think the funny thing about it is us recognizing nothing wrong with that brick room. We've recreated that room here down the hall. But at the same time, having enough spaces to meet the needs of different content creators, that's another way I appreciate you so much because you, more than anyone, and I've told you this off the air many times, like you and Christian pushing me to make my business a better and more supportive to the creators has led to the growth. I think we have most of our podcasts are still going. The ones that haven't, I don't think as Emerge or like, I don't think we did anything specifically wrong, which led to those podcasts not still being around.
Yeah, because a lot of those, you got to think, too. It's like, okay, like you mentioned before, like some of these guys were leaving, and you're automatically thinking, oh, what did I do wrong?
Right.
But it's like in the back of your mind, you got to remember, like, some people still have, like, other jobs outside of here.
Right.
They got different obligations.
And
It's not
sometimes we
necessarily
know of guys that got stressed from wives, girlfriends, whatever, because they did not have those supporting environments that were letting them understand that this is their outlet. And that's what I want to get into next is the outlet of this before. And I think like that was definitely a thing. And I think also some people is the frustration. Yeah. How come I'm not famous yet? Like there is those folks that come in and think they're immediately going to be famous because they heard of some whoever they think. And I'm like, it just doesn't work that way. And also, I'm not your promoter.
Yeah.
I'm your studio production guy. I'm not your.
I'm opening the space for you.
It's up to
Do
you
what you
to
will,
do
yeah.
your other things. And if you don't do those things, I can give you suggestions and offer you support. And I have a lot of ways that we support
There's
that.
plenty of suggestions, different resources you could offer
Right.
them, but it's just a matter of it's in your hands. Do what you will.
You know,
And it's you got to do a lot of research, and you got to open up enough time for you to go in there and like even just YouTube. Like SEO is huge, and using
Right.
keywords for different things. It's a lot, man, and you got to be willing to put the time and effort into it, and you also got to be open minded. Yeah.
but like on the production side, like what are some of the things like that you're using? Like just name some products and softwares and websites that you're using for some of what you do.
Yeah, so I'm in terms of video editing, using everything you taught me with Final Cut Pro because you've been using that since you had your
I've been
class.
using it,
and I'm still using
since
it to this day.
2003 or
Yeah.
2000, whatever it was.
So I'm using that for all my video production stuff, post production, Canva. Essentially, it's just like I call it a broke man's Photoshop
For sure.
because it makes like all
If
the
you
features and
don't,
everything
I'm going to
so
say right to the
simplified.
camera
Right there,
audience,
right there.
if you aren't using Canva and you're like spending $22 a month on Photoshop, you can spend, what's Canva, $15 a month or something like that? What is
I
it?
don't even. I pay
Like,
for the annual.
So
and
like,
it's
but Canva's
60
so much
60 bucks
better
a year,
because
yeah.
if you want to make a thumbnail for your YouTube, it's got a thing called YouTube thumbnail, and it has all these templates.
Yeah.
Like you're done. You're done in 2 minutes. Like I can knock out a thumbnail, a graphic in like no time whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's better and easier to use, more intuitive than Photoshop. Like
especially if
and-
you don't have much experience or
right,
like let's say you do have the experience but you don't have the time
right.
to really do it. Like Canva has everything right
Yeah.
there for you, as you were
So
just saying.
obviously we're using StreamYard.
Yep. For
Talk a little bit about StreamYard. Why StreamYard was such a
Um,
good move for us.
So essentially, StreamYard it kind of eliminates because obviously for those that don't know, like in order to go live, you need the stream keys and everything. StreamYard eliminates that whole step in the
Right.
process. It literally has you log into whatever YouTube, whatever platform you want to go live on, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter,
Right.
Or sorry, X.
And
whatever
you
they
can
call
go
it
to
nowadays,
multiple ones at the
Mhm.
same time. Like you don't. How many stations are you going to on yours? So just
but
one.
StreamYard, I'm just on YouTube.
Just one.
Yeah.
Because like if you want to use X to stream to X, then you have to be verified. So you have to. That's another cost. People don't realize all the inherent costs of
There's a
all
lot.
this stuff. That like
Yeah.
StreamYard isn't free. Like yeah, you can use OBS for free, but it has limitations. Like so, yeah, you maybe have to invest in a few extra bucks a month. And when I was just doing my taxes, I realized how many little things that are a couple things a month. It's like
Yep.
streaming services. Well, how much? I got I got Netflix
Netflix.
and Amazon and Hulu and my wife wants to watch Shrinking again, so we have to have Apple TV. So
Yeah.
it all adds up. So it's no different, but it's the same thing. So StreamYard, you're using Final Cut. We're
Mhm.
using Canva. What else are you?
So for the short form content,
Yep.
if you want to do the captions, because
That's a pain.
I went through the headache of
Yep.
self doing the captions on
Right.
Final Cut, and it was just like, okay, I'm spending about 2.5 hours,
right,
pretty close to it,
right,
on a 30-second to 30-second video. It
right.
just didn't make
For
sense.
each one.
That's what exactly. And if we want to ramp up the amount of content we're posting,
Right.
that wouldn't work this way. So I found captions. It actually, it's one of the more well-known caption apps. But it's essentially you upload your video, right? AI will pick up on the conversation. It'll
Right.
punch out the captions. You could literally edit.
Right.
Like sometimes it doesn't get 100% accuracy on like what you're saying, especially the way I talk. It won't pick up on a lot of the words that I'm saying. So
Right.
a lot of times you could go ahead and edit the word. Choose a different kind of fonts.
Right.
It's pretty much creative.
So
whatever
you're
you wanna
using
do,
that,
but-
and that one is for any you send it a
Mhm.
clip,
Yeah.
and then it does it for you. So
Yes.
I'm using Opus Clip. And Opus Clip does the
That's
same
another
thing.
one,
But
yeah.
what Opus Clip does for me is I send it the 90 seconds or whatever from my short content.
Yep.
My short content, I send it 90 seconds. I could send it the entire video, but then it's going to make 50 of them. And I'm going to have to pay like with coins for, it's like a Coinbase thing. It's like Bitcoin almost. Like I get a
Virtual
certain
coin,
number of coins. So instead, to save myself money, I decide that I want to use these 90 seconds and I send it the 90 seconds and it does all that.
Yeah.
And then like, it's funny because Christian and I did, and again, I haven't even been back on in about 3-4 weeks now, but like, it was funny. We did like Pokemon and it didn't get any of the Pokemon spellings right.
Yep.
Like it didn't know what Pikachu was
No
or
shot.
anybody. Couldn't get anything right. It got Abracadabra wrong. It got everything wrong. So I had to go back into the little paragraph thing and fix
Yep.
everything but I mean, so yeah, everybody's all afraid of AI, but for us, AI is really becoming our best friend.
Yeah, it depends. You gotta be able to adapt with it.
Right.
You can't let it do everything for you in a sense, like write all your
Yeah.
whatever pages and all that. But you got to use it as your friend.
The other one that we're spending probably a little bit more money on than we should is Motion Array,
Yes,
because it's got a lot of it's got a lot of templates and stuff.
helps us with your intros and
It's got a lot of music. It's got a lot of photographs. There's a lot of things in there that we get out of it. We're doing it together on this one, and we'll have to decide if it's worth it, if we're getting enough bang for a buck for what we're spending.
for sure. Because especially with all the content we're making, it's good for like the sound effects and all that. Like if you want to use a certain song in the background, you got to worry about copyrights and all that, because if the copyright does pop up, you have the license to
especially
it.
if you want music. That's probably one of the toughest things to find, is music that's not this royalty free, that you don't have to acknowledge anybody for.
Right.
You don't have to get it off of Spotify and send the guy an email that you're going to use a song. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You can go do that if you want to support artists, but those same artists are also on Motion Array.
Right.
So like it's the same. It's a similar thing. Let's jump ahead, because you just brought it up. So what's with the accent? This is an ongoing funny thing that I have witnessed multiple times. Like, where are you from? And you're like, I'm from Niagara Falls.
Yeah,
so why do you get picked on about your voice?
Oh yeah, all the time. I wish I had an answer for you. I really don't know. I really don't know. The new one I just got the other day was I've never seen the movie. I had to literally look it up on YouTube from someone on Dave and Adams Fanatics Live. One of our customers said it in the chat, so I had to look it up. Sling Blade, I think it's called.
Okay, I don't know that one, but I've heard of it.
I'll show you the clip after. And I'm just like, gee, it's like a mix of like a Southern accent. I've gotten Canadian before. It's just I have no explanation for it. Nobody in my family sounds like this.
Well, your voice
I'm Polish.
Your voice is very deep, and I don't know if that's part of it. I don't think it's even your pronunciations or anything. It's not like you talk any different than the rest of us that are. It's like, obviously we have a very Western New York accent.
Oh yeah.
Like my brother lives in Rochester, and he acts like he lives in some other part of the country, because he's like you're very hard on your A's, like Cheektowaga. Like we have a very recognizable Western New York accent. And even like for friends of mine that have tried to do voiceover work, they realize that they're not getting hired quite often, and I think it's because of their Western New York accent. Like I think we have a very, and we're influenced a little bit by the Canadian accent that's right across the bridge. Like we can see Canada from here.
Yeah, I got a mix of everything. I don't know what it is. Nadia likes to joke that I have my own dictionary. I got my own slang, and I really do. And I don't know if you noticed, you haven't been around her enough, but obviously, so she's starting to pick up on some of my words that I say.
That's hilarious.
I don't know. I got no explanation for it. It's just the way it is.
It's the way it is, and it's your personality.
Right.
And I just think it's hilarious now that it keeps coming up. Like it's not just come up a couple times now; it's come up a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Like, which I think is pretty funny.
Yeah.
On a personal level, is like, what do you get out of like? Forget about the viewership. Forget about the creation that you're learning and how it maybe helps you in your career. Why do you look forward to doing this stuff?
It all comes on. We're obviously big on like mental health and everything, right? And it's an important factor in all of our lives. And I feel like this is an avenue where I could just come in and just open up anything that's going on that's on my mind, and it's a safe space, man. It's really hard to put into words, but it's just, again, like I said at the beginning of the interview here, talking about things that I love with the people I love, and if you enjoy the content, that's just that's a plus.
Yeah, so, for sure. And I mean, what I really like about what you do and what I kind of get out of this as well is like this, I get to go and talk about stuff I'm passionate about, that I care about.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it with people that I really love and trust. Like Dylan, how long you been friends with Dylan?
I lost track. it's been over 12 years.
Yeah.
Easily 12 years.
I mean, I know he's not on anymore, but in the beginning it was like, and he's busy now because he's got a kid, and that
Yeah.
affects all of us. And I'm not throwing shade at Dylan. Like, your priorities sometimes change, and there's things that you have to do, and he just right now doesn't have the time.
Yeah.
And I know, but when he was there, it's like to be able to have like a couple hours a week where you get to hang out with your best bud, like that's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And especially as we get older, because like, you know, people move. Like, my best friend has not lived in the Western New York area since high school. And we have had to find ways to be creative in terms of how we still talk.
Right.
Like, because if not, we would have just lost track of each other like 30 years ago.
Yeah, and it kind of ties to, like, obviously you see who's on the show now. It's me, my brother Brennan, and a younger brother Anthony, and Donnie's there too. And now I got my cousin Aiden helping out with the producing. It's like we don't really get to spend too much time with each other other than like family functions or whatever, if we're going out to dinner or something. But we know we have one day dedicated during the week where we know we're gonna be able to spend time with each other, and especially with like Anthony too, because he has a different mom than me and Brennan.
Right.
So we obviously grew up like a non-traditional way.
And he's much younger than you too.
Exactly.
And so like it'd be very easy for you to have that brother that we have this other brother, but you don't really get to see him.
Yeah.
Because you're not traveling in the same circles.
Right. And so it's another plus to coming here doing the pod. It's like, okay, I know I'm going to be coming here to spend time with my brothers and have a good time.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think that also helps us all with like the concept of, you know, the folks that maybe aren't as understand or aren't as invested in why we do this.
Yeah.
So like, I know that, you know, for me, podcasting became like a way of expressing myself after the passing of my dad.
Yep.
Like, not that I sit in there and I talk about my dad, but like doing that pod that I do with my son, and we were much more active. We were pretty we were every week for a long time, and now we've just both have other priorities.
Yeah.
But I mean, that getting to spend time with my son, our pod back then, and we still do it occasionally, called Next of Kin. But you know, I have that, you know, that time with my son. We have the same conversations at the island, but now we were just recording it, and we actually did pretty well with it. We were pretty happy with the content and the following we were getting.
Yeah.
But just getting out and not talking about work and college and whatever was going on.
It's an escape from reality.
Like, we know each other well enough now. We've had some long conversations on the way to Chicago a couple times.
Yeah.
I think I know that the answer to this, like, there have been things that have happened in our lives in our time together that I think the podcast just gave us something to look forward to, right?
100%. And it's just like, that's the one thing why we work well together, is because we have, like, the past couple of years have had similar experiences.
Yes.
And maybe just like different forms of it, but very similar.
Yeah.
And we know how to push each other to get to bigger heights and everything with what we got going on. And it's just been a thrill, man.
But you knew what was going on with things with me. I know what things were going on with you, and it was allowed us to be supportive to each other.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes just knowing, like, my business model here is I want the people to know that they're not just guys that are paying me, you know, whatever per episode or whatever per month. That, like, we want this to be, and you've been a big part of it, that this building is a collaborative where we're all here and we're doing stuff creatively.
100%.
You know, what are some of your favorite moments so far in this journey?
So obviously the the one we mentioned earlier, Tony Chim.
Yeah.
That's just a more recent one.
Right.
That's kind of cool. Trying to think of another one. Obviously our trips to Chicago, which for projects that didn't tend to work out, but we've learned a lot from it, which sort of definitely helped us out getting to where we're at here.
Yep.
Trying to think of some other ones off the top of my head.
Do you have a favorite episode or moment or bit that you did?
There's been so many. There's been so many. I was just looking back at
one that jumps into my head for a reason, and this was at the old building, was the waffles. Was Dylan eating waffles or whatever? I forget. Like, he lost a bet, so
I think it was like him and Duke. They have like a family fantasy league that they do, and the punishment was to go to a Waffle House and or Burger King or something along the lines of that, and just have a waffle for every hour. So they were able to renegotiate. And I don't think Brennan was able to make it to the show or something.
Oh, yeah, right.
So we had an open seat. So I was just like, you know what? I said, I'm going to offer it to you.
Yep.
Duke, you come on as a special guest. Dylan, you come on. And you got to do your waffles there. So he literally brought the toaster on set.
Yep. And I wasn't even there for that episode.
Yeah.
I don't remember who produced that one. I couldn't be there. I might have, I don't know if I was out of town or I was just
remember.
unavailable, but I just
Yeah.
only, that one was funny for me because I only watched that one. I didn't get to actually be there for that one, but I got to watch that one.
And the fact that we were doing the show as regularly scheduled, but you just hear the toaster
You
popping
know,
in the background, the
toaster popping
conversation
up.
continues.
We-
It's just little stuff like that, and like we've done a couple different specials. We've done like a shout out to Al Marcantonio.
Yep.
He let us come by and do some.
Oh yeah, I forgot
content,
about that. Yep.
The Stack Combine.
Yep.
Shout out Stack Fitness. He let us do our own Tank Talk podcast, little combine there. So
Yep.
we ran some NFL drills.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, we did some watch alongs for games with Hefe Boss.
You
Up,
just
he's
got to
Steelers
try
fan.
things. I think
He's-
you got to
yeah,
try some fun things, and,
Yeah.
and I sometimes have done some things that it didn't go as well as I thought it was going to go,
Mhm.
but I had a good time doing it. And
Yep.
at the end of the day, I want to have a good time, and that's sometimes what my wife says to me. She's like, and shout out to my wife because you've only met her a couple times. I mean,
Yeah.
she comes here and she just kind of like shakes her head like and like this is very you. This place is very much you. But this has been rewarding for me. Like I love the fact that we're doing this. This was special to me because I don't think we'd be even in this place if it wasn't for you getting us going and just giving me like that early on, like, yeah, I'm willing to test this out with you and let's see how it goes. And, no, so I definitely
100%.
appreciate that. I think that that's kind of why, like if somebody came up to you and said, and I know you've had these conversations,
Mhm.
like if someone says to you, like, do you have advice? What do you tell people if they tell you when you talk about your podcast or why you do it?
So-
Then, like, what advice or what do you say to them when people ask you about that stuff?
I mean, I always stick to these three things. You gotta stay consistent with what you're doing.
Right.
You gotta unapologetically be yourself, and you just gotta keep doing it. Don't give even if something doesn't work out the way you think you expect it to, or great if it does, that's awesome. But no matter what, you just gotta keep doing it. You can't give it up.
Like, I don't know Donnie really well, and Donnie to me is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life.
It's just-
His younger
goofball.
brother is really good friends with my son, so I know Josh very well.
Yeah.
And Josh and Donnie are a lot alike, but Donnie has got this weird comic spontaneity, and it's funny because I only really know Donnie as an on-air personality. I don't know what Donnie's like on a Thursday.
Yeah, and
Like-
that's the thing about our show. Like you see us on the camera, that's who we are off camera. Too,
And that's
'cause realistically, we could stream 24/7, and it would be the same thing.
I
you
think
see on the show.
Donnie definitely like plays it up maybe 2%, but I think most of what I think of, like, because I know his brother, like,
Yeah.
that's just Donnie.
That's him.
Like, and Brennan is your brother's he's more low key. Like, he's
100%.
definitely like, and I think that's fun because. But even the way I love your relationship, and clearly your guys are brothers and you're close. But I love like the way he chimes in with things, and his demeanor is a little bit more laid back, which is a lot more laid back than you or Donnie or anybody else that's been
Yeah.
on. But I think it adds like a level of like calmness at times because he doesn't go off on tangents or rails or like, and it's funny that like he's sitting there next to one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life or
That's why it
watched in
works,
my
man.
life.
That's why it
Like,
works.
you know, so and even when he's not available and he just he calls in. So you guys have found out even like, all right, well, if a guy can't be here, well, let's just have him record something and then I'll drop it in. Like,
Yeah.
which is one of the again why we had to figure out better softwares. The first episode wasn't good. And if anybody thinks
shit.
their first episode was
Yeah.
great, then okay, you're kidding yourself. But it shouldn't be good.
No, and that's the way I see like every week too. It's like I look at okay, let's say we have a good show, and I'm cool with it. I still look at ways. Okay, how can we get better from that?
I think I got that from coaching. Like,
100%.
like telling my own kids or my own players, like, yeah, we were great. You scored 2 goals. I'm a soccer guy, as you know. Like even with my own kids, like I had kids that were very good at scoring. And I'd be like, yeah, you scored 3 goals today. Congratulations. I'm like, but that doesn't help me next week. Like, and I'm like, and also calm down. Like, you're not in World Cup. You're playing for Niagara Falls in Western New York. Like, you're not going anywhere. I'm proud of you. Like, let's go get a hot dog or ice cream. But at the same time, next week you gotta bring it next week too. And I think that's kind of like a thing. Like, we can't say, well, we had this guy. It's like, we had Sal Capaccio on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
That's
now
great.
you're good, yeah.
But that was 3 weeks ago. Like,
now what's next?
yeah, what's next? Who's the next thing, or why is this episode worth watching? And I think that's kind of like, it's funny. I had a goofy question here, and I'm not even going to ask. I was trying to figure out like a gimmick for the last question.
Okay.
And I don't have it. So I have one written down. I'm like, I don't even like that one anymore. So I think I'm just going to not even do it. And I'll have to, because, you watch some of these shows and they always have the last question. So I'm like, I feel like that's forced. So that's what I want this pod to be. I want it to evolve like all the other pods. And I don't know, what, you got anything else? Anything else you want to talk about? Here's your chance to talk about, to be a guest instead of a host.
I know. It's weird being on the opposite side
Yeah.
of doing the podcast and everything. It's just, I don't normally be asked to be a guest on other
Right.
stuff. I'm normally the one hosting and getting
Right.
people on. I think this is like my third appearance as a guest on a podcast.
Right.
So it's different being in this seat, but
Yeah.
I will say it's cool being able to do this stuff, man, because you look back at, like, just for me, like, again, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. Like, I know I don't want to do anything traditional.
Right.
I want to be able to live a life where I'm happy with what I do and I'm doing something that I like doing with people I like, just surround myself with, and everything that continue to push me to be my best version of myself. And you've built a platform and like essentially a community now to where we're at now, where I'm able to do that. And it led to me not even just doing it on the side. It's my main thing now.
Right.
Now it's led me to have a full-time position with everything covered, and I could continue to build my career off of that and continue to build my own.
And
content off of
in
that
a
as
weird
well.
way, it was really funny because, like, when you texted me or called me, I don't remember which one it was, that you had gotten the job that you got with David Adams. And we talked briefly because of that. And I was like, I remember going home and my wife came home from work, whatever it was. And I'm like, Tank got a job. And I'm like, I was very proud for you. Like, I was very, very happy for you. I know I have a little tiny like piece of that, but it was like, because I know what it meant to you.
Yeah.
And I knew like the journey to go back to school and finish school through like a really weird, trying to do crap online and getting that done. And then pretty quickly getting a job. Like, you got a job pretty quickly, which most people like who graduate from college, I think they sometimes struggle. But again, I think like if anything, for me personally, like I can say, yeah, he partially got that job because he's been putting in the work. And I think those folks have told you, like, yeah, like we see that you're out there.
100%.
They want to see people that are putting the time in. Like, they can see, even if they don't like, I mean, obviously what you're doing is sports related in your job, but I think people would say like, yeah, but he puts the time in, and he wasn't getting anything out of it necessarily.
Mhm.
Like, he wasn't making money as a podcaster or content
Sure.
creator.
Like some of it came along the way with some of our small like affiliate and sponsorship
Right.
deals, but it's nothing like I'd be able to live off of and be
Right.
comfortable with, because you obviously know, like, the past couple of years have been tough.
Yeah.
Like, even just trying to navigate. Okay, I'm engaged, gonna work on building a family. I can't do it just off this podcast. I've
Yeah.
had multiple different jobs where I know it was gonna last, but I'm just making it work. And now that again, it ties back to what you built here, because obviously I know. Shout out Dave, who is the director of breaking at Dave and Adams. I went to school with him and everything too. But if it wasn't for this platform, I wouldn't have been able to get there, because I had him as a guest. I've had Troy on as a guest.
Right.
I've had Elena as a guest.
Yep.
So I've had a couple people from that company join my podcast, and I'm sure that's helped a lot in terms of getting that.
And I
position.
appreciate
So,
them an awful lot because, like, obviously one of the biggest fears is that when you get a phone call from somebody that they're leaving,
Yeah.
not because that relationship is kind of moving on, and or because also like it's helping pay the rent, so to speak. And I'm appreciative to Dave and Adams that they like understand that it's good for them that you're continuing to do this because they're benefiting from it. because you're becoming better at what you do, so you become a better employee for them. And I appreciate them as an organization just from the standpoint that clearly their management, their owners know that, no, we want guys that have a presence, like, and that they're not like, well, you got to end that other thing now and just do our thing. I like the fact that they seem to be supportive.
No,
That, you know, that they
it's
understand
huge,
that they're
yeah.
getting a better worker because, you know, because you've got a presence outside of it.
Yeah,
You know.
and it all lines. It's all under the same umbrella. Essentially, it's all sports and people who enjoy the sports content. So.
Well, I really want to thank you for joining us on the first episode of Why We Pod. If you're interested in getting involved with podcasting or you have a podcast, please reach out down here below at my email. Please like, subscribe, share, and all those other words that I'm supposed to say at this point. But more importantly, I want you to check out the Tank Talk podcast. Tank, where can they find you?
So we're at Tank Talk _pod on YouTube, on all social media platforms at Tank Talk _pod. And when you're on YouTube, please don't mistaken us for the Fish Tank podcast, because I've already gotten multiple emails, Facebook messages from their viewers saying, oh, you said this wrong thing about a certain fish tank. You don't cooperate with no fish. We're the sports podcast, not the Fish Tank podcast. You could also check out everything we got going on, www.tanktalkpodcast.com. We got
All caps, no spaces.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
That's one of my favorite things. I love your video, and he's like, all caps, no spaces, or whatever it is. I love that. I think part of why I enjoy your stuff so much is the attention to detail on the little stuff.
Yeah.
And even a couple things that I've done, I've asked you to help me jazz up, and I appreciate that. So I didn't get to mention that earlier, but a lot of my stuff has gotten better because I've watched your stuff or, hey, what do you think about this? I think, and that's the collaborative experience that we're all trying to have here, so we all grow together. So
100%.
Please, thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to doing more episodes, and we'll see you next time.